sorry.
Tuesday, April 15th, 2020. Is it on, Teresa?
Yes.
Okay, for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, it is 6:37. Ms. Monroe, if you'd like to call the roll.
Mayor Don Barnard.
Here.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Brian Green. Dave Seeland.
Here.
Jeff Barr. Wes Coble.
Here.
Bob Orsini.
Okay. If we could stand for the invocation, Mr. Jeff Barr is going to lead us, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight in the spirit of community and leadership. We ask for your guidance, your blessing, giving us patience, wisdom, and knowledge to lead our city and make good decisions for the community as a whole. Please watch over all first responders, our men and women in uniform, and most importantly, our neighbors that need your blessings and healings. May you look over them with your love and kindness. In Christ's name we pray, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any additions or deletions to it? Hearing none, what is the will of council?
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
Are all in favor?
Aye.
We have 2 minutes that we need to vote on. Both of them, or one was March 18th, the other one was April 1st. We had no one absent from the first one, and I think everyone was here for the second one. Does anyone have any changes or additions or deletions to this one? Hearing none, what would council like to do with these?
Motion to approve in block.
Second.
All right. Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Coble.
Yes.
Jeff Barr.
Yes.
Okay. Did anybody turn in speaker slips?
I do not have any attorney.
Would anybody like to speak tonight that did not turn in a speaker slip? Okay. We have a presentation tonight from the American Legion Post 254. Mr. Zabo, if you'd like to come up and speak. You got a minute and a half. Just kidding.
Want the other one?
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna have you hold them, Bruce, but you move around too much.
Yeah, I can hold one. There's three of them, I can hold one of them.
All right, that one down the ground cover.
Oh, okay.
Forgive me, I'm not much of a public speaker, but what I lack in public speaking, I make up for in pure girth. So, thank you for allowing us to speak to you tonight. I'm excited to present our vision for remodel the Community Center American Legion building, project that will transform the space into a more functional, modern, and inviting environment. American Legion's goal with this remodel is to enhance our building's aesthetic appeal, improve efficiency, create a space that better serves the needs of the community and the American Legion. This project is not just about updating the appearance, but also increasing sustainability, optimizing functionality, and ensuring long-term value. Before we dive into the details, take a look at the key challenges we're addressing currently. The building faces issues such as improper drainage that could affect the foundation, outdated design, poor energy efficiency, and lack of accessibility. These factors impact overall experience for the community as the value of the building as well as the members of the American Legion. To tackle these challenges, we've outlined a comprehensive remodel plan that focuses on 3 main areas: modernized design and aesthetics. We will refresh the exterior and the interior with contemporary finishes, upgrade lighting, and handicap accessibility. This will enhance the functionality, property value, and appeal. Sustainability and efficiency, energy efficient lighting, improved installation, and smart building technology will be implemented to reduce operational cost and environmental impact. Improved accessibility and functionality, wider entrances, better navigation flow will ensure seamless experience for all occupants, including those with mobility challenges. The remodel is going to be 3 phases. First phase the total timeline is about 24 months. First phase will be about 2 to 3 months, and that's going to cover the interior redesign. We're going to take out the current lighting and replace it with LED lighting. We're going to look at the insulation and improving that. And also, we're going to take out where our current office is. If you guys are familiar with the building, we're going to take that out and expand the 2 bathrooms, 2 existing bathrooms to make, the main purpose is to make them handicap accessible, but also to allow for future expansion and bring them up to code. Also included in the first phase would be redoing our website and expanding our SEO, which is a challenge we have right now, getting the marketing for our rental. You know, it's word of mouth. A lot of the community doesn't even know we're there, so we want to help improve that. So that's part of that first phase. Second phase is going to be the exterior. We're doing board and batten siding, metal siding, and then metal roof, landscaping, and that's the phase where we'll address the drainage issue as well. We're going to have it pumped out. I was talking to one of the guys from the water department Monday when we're having our plumbing fixed, and there's drain tiles around that lower parking lot, which used to be the basketball court, so we're going to direct it out there to get it away from the building. Once completed, the remodel will not only elevate the building's appearance, but also boost property value, attract high quality rentals, and expand the current rental options, allowing us to maintain low cost and higher quality rental options for our community. It's investment in the future that will deliver returns for years. Most importantly, this project greatly increases the value and usability to the city and the community and the American Legion. It's more than just a facelift. It's a strategic enhancement to maximize efficiency, sustainability, and community experience. Thank you for your time today, and I welcome any questions you have.
You said there were 3 phases. The first phase was interior, second phase was exterior. What's the third phase?
Third phase is the addition. Sorry, thank you, Donnie, for pointing that out. I thought my presentation was too wordy, so I was skipping ahead.
So the third
Yeah,
phase is this first picture here?
The first picture, it'll be this. This is a 20 by 60 addition that goes on the back. Limited as far as the width of it, the length of it, because of the setbacks. So it'll still give us our 20-foot setback in the back.
If you turn your mic on.
Only a question of formality. Is there a process that they need to ask permission of the city since we own it, to my understanding, right?
Yes.
Has this gone through zoning?
No. They just wanted to go over their overall plan with us.
Okay.
Dave, if you want to take the lead on this.
Yeah, this is discussions we've had over breakfasts, how to make the building, more appealable. Again, even after, obviously, this would probably go through facilities committee, right? Then zoning, make sure everything's good for the fire department, for accessibility, square footage, sprinkler systems, things like that, right? And then that's when we would get towards the point of approval to say, this is, we're gonna start moving forward and started spending money outside of, the planning phase.
Understood.
Yeah. And then, real quick then, you guys would still have the, I guess we call it the resident discount?
Yes, so we'd adjust our pricing. The nice thing, when we get to phase 3 and we add those 2 other meeting rooms, it gives us the ability to have a much lower rental. Our rental's pretty cheap to begin with, I think $120 for half a day. So it'll give us a smaller meeting room for smaller events. And then we haven't gotten to that point yet, but my initial thought was it'd be a 40 to 50% discount for residents.
And then we talked about, Jeff kind of blew past this. Was going to scratch my itch was we would add security features, remote, because right now they have to send someone to lock up the building, monitor, make sure there wasn't any excessive trash, and we can replace that with a smart building feature of cameras, door locks that you can unlock with an app and shut the building down without the necessity of someone coming up there to close things down. Obviously, you can see through the pictures, obviously this would start to draw some pretty good community interest, not only outside, but we reach out into the Northridge and other areas as a affordable, new, very nice rental option. I know a lot of people use this for baby showers. What else?
Wakes, what else? Sherry's are,
Family reunions, they do.
All the above, right?
Yeah.
Does any of the planning, are you taking any consideration of parking? Anything to do with parking that we're,
That was gonna be my question. With the basketball courts down there, the tennis courts are in bad shape. Are you guys gonna get rid of some of that and clean it up and?
yes. Yeah, so if we need more parking, we can go to the basketball courts. We can use that area for parking as well if we need to, based on the occupancy of it.
There's basketball courts, tennis
And tennis
courts,
courts.
and the existing parking.
The existing parking around the building, then the tennis courts are also existing parking, which all of that needs upgraded to and
do
redone,
these plans
resurfaced.
address any of that is the only question I have.
As far as expanding the parking,
Not expanding, just your existing parking.
hopefully our architect does his due diligence and will assure that we have enough parking based on the occupancy. If that's what your question is, yes, we're gonna
Right, that's
address
first
that.
and foremost, but will that, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't feel like that parking lot is in great shape. What I'm asking is the capital expenditure going to include any of that?
Yes, that would be phase two, the exterior part
will be
is
the
gonna be the
parking.
landscaping, the parking, yes. Yes, because they are in bad shape, they need resurfaced,
Okay.
probably more than just resurfaced.
I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just making a suggestion. It obviously looks very beautiful, et cetera. We don't really have a community space, but I know just because of the world I live in, as far as a profession, is that I don't believe this building has a generator backup.
No,
I would ask you to think about it, see what the budget is for it, that in the summertime, you can use this as a cooling station, or when we have inclement weather with some folks that might be, don't have air conditioning in their home, lose power, specifically seniors. I know many communities have a program, I forget what you call it, chief, where it's a list of our, it'll come to me, our most vulnerable population that if they needed a respite place during a power outage, heating or cooling, that you would need a backup generator there if that was a desire to provide that service. That's all I'm suggesting.
that is one of the things that we have looked into. I talked to Ohio EMA, they put me in touch with Licking County.
Right.
And also the Red Cross, and we had some conversations, we're gonna reopen them, but one of the things was we didn't have handicap accessibility, and we need the generator. So, yeah, generator is one of the things that we would look at, because we do want to have this as an emergency shelter.
Great, thank you, glad to hear that. Any electrical improvements in, or have you guys, has that's already been done?
No, well, we've had some small ones, but there's more that needs done, and that's part of
Probably
the,
like a whole new panel and everything.
yeah, that's part
all
of
gonna be
the,
that,
part of phase
right?
one,
'Cause that,
yes.
you're gonna need that to be up to code.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I can cut in here,
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt. So, just for a little bit of background, Mr. Seeland reached out to me as well as the commander, and I think where we're at with this, so that we don't get too far out in front of ourselves, it was explore the idea, and the reason this is coming out of synchronization with a different project that may be privately owned. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, the American Legion building is owned by the city. It sits on city land. There is a lease in place with the city. They need to get a permission and approval prior to any improvements associated with that. So again, a little bit backwards. Typically, someone just submits a plan. We go through the review process through zoning, design review board. But being your building, they have to get approval. So prior to them moving, I think, forward, they wanted to see if this idea at least had some legs underneath of it with you all. If they get a reaction from you all tonight that, hey, really concerned about this, but it doesn't seem like we're tracking in that vein. I think what we're hearing is we'd like to hear more information about it. Now that we've all addressed it, ideas been explored, what I would suggest, just a suggestion, having their team work with myself, as well as if council wanted to have it go through the facilities committee, address it through that, simply because it is kind of a city building, but it is operated by the American Legion. But tonight, it's not necessary for you guys to kind of address all your questions and concerns. I think it was just a soft landing. If it's something that you're interested in, the next steps would be to connect, and then we'll go through some different processes. And then in that process, we'll address items that I think you all believe are important to you all, such as generators for a public safety building, as well as for their purposes and what they're doing. So I just wanted to kind of cut in and put it in a package for you guys and how you're supposed to look at it tonight, and then a path forward, if that's acceptable to the American Legion and for you all. Yes.
How old is that building, by the way?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That was her dream.
I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I'm not a huge fan of red tape and bureaucratic processes, so I'm all for, like, the faster, the better. I think the community would absolutely love it.
Yes.
I think it would be a huge benefit for what that's worth.
Can I ask an estimate of what you're looking for as far as dollar amount of this potentially?
Um,
I think they're paying.
I'm gonna,
Well, I know, I realize that. I'm just curious of upgrades and all that. No.
it's not gonna be cheap, so that's why we're doing it in phases. We wanna do the first phase, that way we can, to improve the interior, so we can generate more rental business, more rental income, and that way be able to move on to the next two phases. Cost-wise, the entire project, we're just guessing, even with me as the general contractor, we're probably gonna be over 300 by the time we finish. The first phase is probably gonna be 75, because we're gonna, used to do projects like this. Actually, the architect that I'm working with, he and I worked on quite a few remodel projects at the Huntington Center downtown. So I'm a general contractor, so I have the connections in the commercial side, so we'll be able to cut some costs there versus going outside. So it will be a little bit cheaper, but it's not gonna be $50,000.
Yeah.
I think council can honestly say it looks great. I mean, it's
Thanks.
a huge improvement.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I'm excited. Each phase adds a lot to it, so,
Awesome. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else have any
Thank you
questions?
so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir.
Good, thank you.
Okay, council committee reports. Planning and zoning was canceled on April 8th. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, the 22nd at 6:30. A design review board met on 4/8. Ms. Monroe, do you have any minutes or anything from that would you'd like to bring up?
'Tis the season. They saw 2 applications for signing, house siding
Okay,
approved.
that's it.
That's it.
Perfect. Finance, we met tonight. Our next meeting is on May 20th at 5:30 in council chambers. Tonight's meeting, we recommend to take to council some road projects that came from safety and service, and then came to us for finance. It would be, the project discussion would be Liberty and McCracken, fixing those 2 roads. Micro sealing on Concord Road, Benedict and Buena Vista, and then some crack sealing throughout the city, is it, Sean?
Correct. And if you all prefer, we have some handouts, or I can put it up on the screen, walk you through it now. If you have questions, we can save it till the end of the meeting for other business. I don't want to disrupt the flow and the function of what you've got going on, and you may not have any questions at all, but if you do, we're happy to answer any questions. But what I told the Finance Committee tonight was that the funds are appropriated, so really this is a check and balance to where we're presenting this to you all, being a large sum of money. It's already been appropriated, but these are the specific projects that staff is recommending that we tackle. And we were able to look at some extended years, such as 2026, that we would like to address the following year with road projects up in that area as well.
And just so everyone's aware, the Pershing Drive would be handled in 2026. That was wrote on there, and that would be handled in coordination when Leafy Dell, the work in Leafy Dell is being done. So it'd be all done in one time. And then taking Leafy Dell all the way down to the school, fixing that main drag there. So, does council have any questions or comments on this, or anything they would like Sean not to go forward with this, or?
Yeah, let's talk about it in other business.
Okay.
I think we can talk about it a little bit more.
Okay, we'll move that. Safety and Service met on the 7th at 5, or at, the next meeting is the 7th, May 7th, and 5:30 in council chambers. Received direct reports and a yearly report from the Chief of Police. Rusty, would you mind just giving us some highlights? Or Chief Smart, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the first time we've ever done an annual report. This is one of the goals that I had coming into being the chief of police here. So it starts with a mission statement. It shows our statistics. It has all of our calls for service. It shows our traffic crashes. So if the community is wanting to know how many bells we hit, there were 19 total accidents at 37 and 62. 10 of those were the bells.
For last year.
For last year, yep.
That's it?
And we had, I believe, 12 the year before.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Seems like more, and there may have been more, but those are the ones that we have reported.
Okay.
We are a fully accredited police department. We do bias-free policing. We have to, all traffic stops, we have to state what gender someone is, what race they are. And it shows the awards and accreditations that we have in this report, and I hope the council's happy with what myself and staff completed.
Does anyone have any questions for Chief Smart? Okay, thank you, sir. Wasn't there one other thing you were adding?
Other business?
Other business, okay. City manager report. Sean, would you like to go over the highlights on this?
Again, I'll leave it to you all if you have any questions to certainly go through them, and I'll be here to answer them, but we have a full agenda, so again, I don't want to take over too much of the time, so I'll leave it to you all if you have questions for specific items.
I don't have a question. I think I just want to share for transparency, for lack of better words. And it has to do with the sewer plant expansion and working with JYAA. That I think JYAA may have reached out to you, maybe with Jack, to taking a look at how that piece of pie property goes near the parking lot that the city owns, and trying to kind of square off their parking lot, for better lack of words, Sean, where there's some property, an ask may be coming, and I instructed JYAA president to talk it over with you to put it all together in one deal.
Yes, if I can, what Jeff is referencing is item number 10, I think is what you're referencing on the sheet, so.
I didn't go down far enough. I just.
I thought you read it and you were hitting it exactly, actually.
Yep, that's.
So Jeff is absolutely correct. JYA reached out to share their exploring parking lot improvements and inquiring if a small piece of land adjacent to Belt Park could be transferred in order to square off. See, I thought you read it. You could have came across. Our engineering is currently reviewing this area to determine if it is necessary for additional plant expansion. So we've kicked this over to Jacobs and with the site layouts, and if this would be an impediment to the improvements that they need to have there. We expect some feedback from them over the next week. But just from a cursory glance, they did not see anything that gave them a great deal of concern, but they just want to dot their i's and cross their t's before, obviously, we come to you all with a formal recommendation or at least a conversation a little bit further.
Anybody else with questions? Okay, thank you. Moving to public hearings of legislation, as there's no tabled legislation. The first is ordinance 03-2025, an ordinance to amend section 1159 of the city's codified ordinances. This is the second reading of this one. Mr. Stainer, if you'd like to go over this, and I think we have some representatives here who'd like to speak about it.
I went over this last time in greater detail, so I'll do a little bit more of a wave top, if that's possible. And if you do have questions, absolutely fill in some of the blanks that you're wanting to be colored in. So what we have is a text amendment to a zoning district of the city of Johnstown. This has went through our planning and zoning department, then it went through the planning and zoning board. They reviewed this, they added some recommendations to be added as conditions to this, came before the planning and zoning. I believe the vote on that was either a 4-0 or a 5-0 recommending for approval. The next step in this process is it comes to you all. Last week you had the introduction and the public hearing on this, and this is the second reading, the second hearing of it. There are options available, and I bring these up because there was conversations that were brought up last week. So tonight, if you feel like you need more information, the applicant can certainly ask, or the council can make it upon themselves to table this. If you feel like you have enough information and you want to act on this, you can also do that as well. So those two options that you have tonight before you. With that being said, paint and powder coating manufacturing, this came to us as a site that is specifically for a user. I'm going to butcher the name, Kansai Helos, German-based company, and the use is not currently permitted within our manufacturing district, light manufacturing district. That's not to say that this is an unusual use. It's to say that our light manufacturing has relatively restrictive amount of uses that can be put into place there. Last time we talked a lot about the traffic constraints that are part of the equation whenever introducing new uses. If you recall, 3 months ago, you had a text amendment before you for a much broader change in uses. And the council obviously voted to move away from that text amendment. And I think the items that you addressed during that conversation were relevant to the traffic. You can find in the staff report here that the traffic that would be generated with this particular use is substantially less, and the job creation happened to be a decent fit, which is, I believe, why we were able to recommend it from staff, and also the Planning and Zoning Commission were able to recommend it through their board as well. We do have two representatives here tonight, and I'm going to pause and allow myself to introduce them and see if they have any additional comments. And then if you all have any questions or comments, we're happy to fill in any blanks. Tonight we have Deb. I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to let you take it. Shear, all right. And David. Deb is with One Columbus, and David is with the Montrose Group that oftentimes helps out with some projects that are being submitted that have some nuances that need to be addressed that would be different than if it was just an outright zoning situation. So I'll pause there for a moment, and if you all want to state anything, you can, or if council has any questions, you can fire away.
Yeah, Dave Robinson with the Montrose Group. I think Ryan Scribner from our team was up here previously. We're glad to answer any questions. Pretty straightforward from our perspective, but, again, you guys get to make the decision, so we're again, glad to get your feedback. Timing-wise, as Sean stated, we obviously want to get the support, so if there's not the support to do it tonight, we need to do some more work. We're glad to do that. If there is the support, we're all for that. As well, the company has a late May closing timeframe, so we have some time, but we don't have a ton of time. We do want to have this project end up in Central Ohio.
Question.
Go ahead.
F, under here, under the proposed 100 feet away from property line abutting of residential. So 100 feet is about from this wall to that wall, I'm thinking. Could it be more as proposed? I mean, how did we come up with 100 feet, I think is what I'm asking.
There's quite a large buffer in there currently.
I'd have to look and see what exactly it is, but.
Sean, can you pull that map up?
Gonna pull it up now.
Let me turn the screen on.
I got you. Pull it by
The remote's on the shelf there.
So while I'm trying to do
And,
that.
and so, I mean, it maybe even in, would it be in the ordinance or would it be in the, if the ordinance was passed to allow in the proposal that
The one on the counter.
the abutting residential property will it have, will it be required to be buffered with landscaping, et cetera, to the residential neighborhood? Neighborhood, right? It's not neighborhoods, it's one.
It's a great question. So in our codified ordinance, as far as development goes, if they were to do an expansion, and let me back up, they're proposing to go into an existing facility, which you all are aware of. But if they were to do any type of expansion to that building, it would then be required that they go through the necessary process, and those landscaping requirements would be instituted. With any residential, it's obviously substantially more than if it were just abutting a neighboring light manufacturing district use. So you are correct, and let me finally plug in here.
Between there and the residential. Right now, between your building and the residential, there's roughly about 400, I think 450 feet, something like that.
439-ish, give or take.
And there is a pond
I am.
between the building and the neighborhood for them to get to, so,
And then that's the Mastodon Trail, right?
yes, and the Mastodon
Teresa,
Trail is a
he's got
buffer.
it.
There's a lot of buffers between this building and any residential.
Nope, sorry.
Which building is it again? I forget.
The old 31 building. So it's like,
Corner of Commerce
go
and
to the
Endeavor.
bike path. And if you were at the like trailhead of the bike path, and you look through where the trees are not, you know, it's the building you see from the trailhead.
It's a white one.
Something else while Teresa's trying to work through that, we have some new technology, we're sharing the space with the school, so while she's trying to navigate that, last time there was some concerns about some safety or just in the environmental impacts relative to the use. And we received some information from the company relative to what they're doing there, and we're continuing to get information as it comes in. So I would ask that if you have any further questions or some of these informations you don't feel are satisfying to you, that you would reach out, let us know that you requested information. I have heard from a couple council members that they do want a little bit more information, and some of that is actually came in right before the meeting relative to, we'll call it the MSDS, or let's see, I'm gonna butcher that.
Safety data sheet.
Yes, and that gives an overview of the chemicals that are gonna be used there. So we'll tell you, it's light manufacturing is the district, so to have these types of chemicals and things in that particular area is not unusual. If you look around at some surrounding processes that are currently happening in that area, you'll probably find some similarities. I'm not gonna go in to identify, because I'm not technically qualified to say which one is less or worse than the other, but I did send an email out that they circulated with some of the items that they will be utilizing for their production, and then also a link to some of the other manufacturing sites that exist in that particular district. So take some time. I thought it was going to be more complex than it was, but it's actually kind of user-friendly, easier to read. So don't be intimidated like I was. And I looked at it and I said, well, this isn't overly complicated. So take that into consideration. There was one other point that I wanted to mention, but
If I'm looking at this report, and maybe one of you two can, when it's talking about the hazard rating, you know, the health and safety, it's rated at a 1, which is it's a slight. How high does that go to? Do you guys know?
I don't know how,
Yeah,
we could ask the company.
Everything's a 1 essentially, because you can misuse it to cause harm.
okay. So the slight rating is a good,
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
yeah, go ahead.
My assessment is a good corporate partner. This is a good opportunity. My concern is that the permitted use is not narrow in scope enough. A future operator or another manufacturer come to town, it says paint and powder coatings. The powder coating with the SDS, the updated name, with the information we received, pretty safe. Keep it out of the drain, you know, don't eat it, you know, we'll be okay. We'll know if it goes down the drain, because we'll pick it up in the sewer system, so there's safeguards there. My concern is the broad writing of this language is, if someone else or a future operator would come in and decide to make something that falls in this scope, we're gonna be in a lawsuit if we don't want them to have a facility that puts off potential
That's interesting. I like,
dangerous.
you have no problem with what they're bringing. You wanted to
You know how
narrow
I
the
look at it.
scope. You want to narrow the
I always
scope more.
look at what's our exposure, what's the worst case? How could a poor actor take advantage of this legislation in the future? And that's my concern. If that scope is broad, everything they said they have no intention, well, intention is not binding, right? And it certainly doesn't bind the next person or the person after that.
Sean, what would be that we could narrow it more?
So let me back into this a little bit. First, with reacting to what Bob was saying. I've communicated that to the company, and what I've asked for, in addition to what you received currently with their current production, is, to your point, Bob, it is paint and powder coating. What is the worst-case scenario, rather than what they are doing? They are going to get us some more information relative to paint in general, production and manufacturing, and get those data sheets for you to review. And I would assume they may come in at 1, they may come in at a 2, some of them may even come in at a 3. I don't know, but that's a great question
Would
that
it be
you're
easier to
asking.
write the language to say paint and powder coating manufacturing with council approval?
I would tell you that,
Conditional use.
I would tell you the applicant would probably feel that was too restrictive and probably walk away. And I'm not, and I'll let them speak.
That makes me want it more.
Why would this applicant walk away if we're allowing what they want?
If they
I will
if they
let-
come back for something else and say, we want to do this now, well, let's talk about that.
I don't know if you guys want to react to that.
Well,
I don't want to
certainly,
misspeak for the applicant.
we certainly could talk to the company about that. I mean, they think this fits what they do. I don't know if the concern is with what this company will do or what the next company will
This
do.
legislation doesn't only speak to this company.
Oh, I get it. No,
It speaks to all companies.
I got
So
it.
want you to
I
convey
understand
that
what a
to
text
police,
amendment.
And if anyone watches, I have no issue with the company or any
Mhm.
reason to think they will do anything other than they say. But, you know, our charge is to protect the community at large from the negatives and promote the
Sure.
positives. I just want to massage this and make the scope appropriate to accomplish both. And since we do have some time, that's my goal.
Yeah, and we're glad to help you think through, how to do that in a way that does not, harm the operation of the company and still makes it supportive. I gotta think a little bit more about the industries you're talking about and what you're trying to exclude. It's a little difficult in the 2-minute, exchange to kind
And I'm not
of
asking
figure that out.
for something specific.
Sure.
I'm asking for a little more clarity on the exposure that may exist. Think past what their operations and their culture as to what other operations.
Yeah, I guess part of what I would ask us to think about, and again, we don't have to figure it out now, is what are you trying to exclude, right? I mean, this is, in this industry, this is generally pretty well received. This isn't, you see a community that puts an oil refiner in. Well, that's a lot different, right? That's very controversial and, I drive a car with, takes gas, so I'm for
Admittedly,
it,
from a
but.
place of ignorance, of not understanding all the risk associated with it, but understanding that solvents are highly combustible.
Mhm.
And they come into different paint manufacturing, different coating manufacturing, nothing that they proposed. But
Mhm.
the potential of that caused me to say pause and say, hey, is this an allowable use now? That we've kind of made a backdoor for someone to come in, put up a facility, and now we have potentially massive tanks of flammable materials close to 400 feet, close to the neighborhood. So that's really what I'm trying to get at. And again,
Okay.
it's from a place of ignorance, not understanding how all
Sure.
this works.
And I think, as Sean mentioned, I think I know it was a late communication that came, so I'm sure no one has seen it. I haven't even seen it. I've heard about it because one of my team sent it over. I think there's a facility that's already there that's probably got a lot more chemical exposure than this one, but,
Very true. That could be
You know.
absolute fact.
And I think part of the question might be, in the powder coat, manufacturing process is what I think, Bob, you're trying to find that vein that is the manufacturing process versus the application process versus the manipulation process versus the stripping process
Versus any process.
versus any of those other fans. That how can we steer this down to the point where what you're talking about is the rule and not necessarily the exception, right?
Okay.
Because that the MSDS sheet you sent us again, it's level 1. It's just as explosive as corn dust.
In a
Really.
corn silo, yeah. That's
Exactly.
what I was thinking.
So how do we better write it to protect and direct at what specifically what you're asking for versus all those other 3, and God, there's probably even 10 more variants of that industry that you're in, or that we're proposing here, is how do we just make sure that this is what we're allowing in and not, the stripping? Because again, once you talk about stripping, you're talking about solvents, and you're talking about,
Okay.
the wastewater runoff and all that stuff.
Urethane-based products.
Yeah. So just making sure we're protecting and we're directing at what is being proposed versus opening up a wider book.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably some of the information that could have helped you came at, 5 o'clock today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's okay.
unfortunately, none of us got to review it.
That's okay.
So that makes it tough.
Well, just like I said,
I
we
applaud you for having time, but the rest of us didn't.
The MSDS was the last thing I got, I think.
I think everybody here wants them here.
Yeah.
We just want to protect, not allow every company
It's about the
come in and
legislation.
operate.
It's about the legislation. not-
Sure, no,
not
and
about the acting.
I understand when you're and you have to do a text change because you don't have the use permitted. We've actually gone through the same thing with data centers, because some of the, even new zoning codes were not, data centers didn't exist, so I certainly understand that. But we'll work with our clients, see if we can help you think through that. I don't know what it is. I tell people regularly, I'm a political science major, not a real science major, so chemistry's not going to be what I figure out, but I'm sure the company has smart people that can look into it.
Sean, what would be the process of that? So say we get with their company, you work on making some amendments to this zoning to fit this better. What's the process timeline after that? Or maybe Teresa?
You can modify the request and you can add additional conditions. We'll call them conditions because that's what these are considered, that Trevor put on there, 1 through 4. You could add additional conditions. With that said, I want to go back, and I'm always going to play worst case scenario here. And I think Bob was doing that at the beginning, and I want to pick back up on that. We're looking at the permitted use, not the applicant. So again, and I've communicated this to the company, fantastic company. We're looking at the use, not necessarily the actor that's going to be participating in it. So what I would like them to do is give us worst-case scenario on paint and powder coating manufacturing as far as the solvents and chemicals, because for me, I don't know the volatility of all the chemicals, and I'm not going to pretend to. But if we can get that information so that you can evaluate it, that may be helpful, because at the end of the day, you may say, well, all paint and all powder coating manufacturing relative to what exists out there right now may not be that intrusive. So the risk for you all to permit that use then gets heavily mitigated. It's like, okay, well, this is already something that exists, or maybe something that exists out there you're not in agreement with, and maybe this goes a little too far. You get to decide what your comfort level is, but what I don't want to have happen is us to go through this exercise and we look at conditioning something smaller. The company says that may not work for us in a 50-year perspective, but we haven't evaluated the safety and the concerns of what's the maximum exposure from an environmental or a safety perspective associated with paint manufacturing. So I want to make sure that that's still an avenue that you want to participate in. If you're saying, hey, we know enough about paint and coating manufacturing that if we're introducing solvents into it, this is a no-go, because that's going to be helpful for us to take back to the applicant so we can clearly communicate to them that if this is something, then this is a line.
Well, and-
or is there exposure?
And maybe a suggestion is, rather than a hard and fast rule, because there's a lot of hard and fast rules in this text, right? Maybe you identify it as a factor, right? That can be based in your decision. That it leaves you wiggle room. You might be really comfortable with the company. I don't again, I'm not going to pretend to know the science behind this. It may be another company that comes in with 2,000 jobs that wants to do something that you really like, and it's going to have a process associated with it that may have solvents in it. In my mind, you know, if I were you, I'd want to leave some discretion up to the council. Note it right in the text that it's something that needs to be considered. It's done a lot in, you know, in zoning text and different categories. You can certainly have the setback and still all the, you know, all of the rules that you want. But again, I would try and build some flexibility in there for you, because then that leaves council the leeway to kind of say, we want this one or we don't.
I will say, I would caution council on how you move forward on this, because from an economic development perspective, there has been a lot of hard work done to get this company here from One Columbus, Jobs Ohio, Montrose Group, Grow Licking County, everything that we've worked hard to do to bring reputable companies here to increase our revenue as a city has gone into this. And I feel like we're maybe splitting hairs here on some details that we can work out in the future with other companies that come in. But we would like to continue this path with One Columbus and Grow Licking County and Jobs Ohio. We do not want to be the hard one to work with. So that is.
100% agree with you. Is it possible we pass this zoning, okay? 2 weeks down they're allowed in. A month down the road, we change our zoning back to where it was. Delete it.
It's not a great practice. to get-
I was just asking. I was trying to think of,
Everything is
There's a
amendable.
lot of legal things that go along with that, and I don't wanna.
or
Basically
Fine,
creating a
I'm not.
non-conforming use.
Yeah, you'd
That's
be,
not a great
you'd
strategy.
probably get questioned on that.
okay, or at least passing it and then making amendments to it to tailor it more.
If you want to get this through tonight, I think it can be passed with conditions we could place on it tonight. You know, conditions that can be met, you know, in the next week or so. It's hard to do it that way, though, is the issue.
What I would not wanna do is pass it with conditions in it that are not acceptable to the
Exactly.
folks coming in, without
Right.
knowing the impact.
Or feasible to be carried
Mm-hmm.
out. in
I
real
don't know
time.
enough about their business, their operation, or their plans to understand. What I don't wanna do is pass, new legislation that's pretty much wide open. And to this, yes, there are setbacks, yes, there are noise and odor things in there, but it doesn't really address the safety. And that's my biggest concern, or the environmental impact if something would go tragically wrong.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Sure.
You can come up to the microphone.
No one can hear you at home unless.
Yeah, come on up, Deb.
Does the Ohio EPA factor into that? Because they do have requirements that are required.
That would be great, but
from a
I don't know what
safety
they are.
perspective.
And I don't know what the managing or the monitoring process is.
Okay.
Well, I was going to bring up the same point. I mean, the reality is, for all manufacturers anywhere in the United States, there's going to be state or federal environmental regulations they have to follow, from the Clean Air Act to the Clean Water Act. There's permitting requirements, there's reports. I'm not sure I can give you the complete exhaustive list. Obviously, we still operate chemical plants, we make paint, you know, we have oil refineries. So there's clear regulations where, you know, where that can happen. You know, so again, I'm probably less worried about the environmental, because I think that from a pure protection standpoint, that is there.
And OSHA from a safety.
Yeah, OSHA from a safety as well.
That's the
so.
way I look at it. If the EPA allows it, I'm an accountant, not a scientist, so. So what would council like to do on this?
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The applicant could request for a tabling. I would recommend that the applicant ask for a tabling if you all felt you needed more time. So my question to you all is, would you like more time, or do you feel like you have sufficient information to vote? I would implore you that if you're considering not permitting this use, that you allow for at least one more meeting to digest the facts, give you more information, before you would make that final determination. That's just a recommendation, but I'll obviously defer to you all, but I'll let you react to that, and then if the applicant wanted to, they could then ask and request to vote or to table, if that's the process you guys want to work through.
Yeah, and we're very comfortable with what Sean just laid out.
Okay. What are some things from council that you would like the applicant to, Bob, you'd like the zoning more tailored?
I just want to make sure we know what we're allowing,
Okay.
because I don't think we do.
So is the applicant able to?
What they're asking for is not an issue, but that's not, we're allowing that and then. That's what I'm concerned about.
But are you
And-
comfortable with, the EPA is essentially, that's the final say?
The EPA was
We-
watching a plant that blew up in Columbus too, I'm assuming, so. That's, now, that could be an egregious outlier, but I don't know that. Right, I mean, we're pretty close to houses there for, not what they're proposing, but what this legislation allows. My recommendation would be, I don't know how they categorize it, but in the industry I'm in, they categorize things with toxicity levels and flammability levels, and they're stack ranked. As we look at something, when it hits a threshold, like gasoline, highly flammable. Other items, slightly flammable to non-flammable. Maybe we could look at saying, when you get above this here, then you just have to come back and get an additional approval. They eliminate these things that are super dangerous, or not, or say, these are only dangerous because you don't know about them, and here's why they're not dangerous. And tell me that, I'll say, great. But that's my concern. I don't know what we're actually saying yes to. And if there's other flammable items up there that are already existence, that's more the reason to try to limit that exposure. Right? Or maybe it's not a risk. I just don't know.
Well, what if we more, and I apologize if there's another, this is someplace else in this code, but what if we more clearly defined what paint and powdered coating manufacturing is? Instead, because I don't disagree with you intellectually, right? I get what you're saying, but it's really difficult to kind of put zoning text for a potential negative that we don't fully understand. So maybe instead of doing that, maybe we think through what exactly is this industry and what are you encouraging to be there? Because that's really why you want to have this in here.
That'd be perfect.
You know, so instead of trying to go through what, believe me, you know, all the environmental regulations and permitting and start listing chemicals and stuff like that, that's not going to be effective because that constantly changes, right? You know, so you're probably going to do nothing but alienate the company and make them nervous and not really kind of meet your goals. So why don't we do a little homework on our side that says this is what the industry is? And I mean, there's basically NAICS codes. I mean, there's established industry definitions that can say that this is what this industry is. So something else doesn't try and sneak in that industry. And I mean, it's, again, I'm going to use the data centers as an example. You know, it's something that we've had to do that other places, and we've had to get a definition of what a data center is, which sounds simpler than it actually is. But this one might be a little bit easier because it's kind of an established industry. And maybe that gets to what you're talking about so that you don't get, I'm going to, you know, the oil guys are going to kill me. I'm using the refinery again as an example. So you don't get an oil refinery that comes in and says, no, we're actually paint and powder coater manufacturing. We think we fit into that. So maybe we'll think about it a little bit more if that's what you want us to do. You know,
I don't know what the ask is. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I like that. I think that right there would be perfect because we're defining what it is that we're allowing.
Yeah, yeah, and then again, that also gives you a defense against other people saying, I'm going to sue you because you didn't approve my zoning, because then what you can say is, well, you're not paint and powder coating. You're not meant for this definition.
And I think if you can look at zoning code, I mean, the beauty of all zoning, typically, they're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah,
I'm like you, I'm a political science major,
Yeah.
not a scientist.
Right.
So, if you have some code in other places where this has been
Yeah.
allowed, we'd love to see that. I understand going through some of this paperwork, and I wish I could have gone through the packet tonight.
It's okay.
even at 5
Yeah, that's
o'clock.
okay.
I know this is more water-based in design, so that is nice to see, because the ones that have typically exploded are, you know, they're not water-based.
Absolutely. Everything
They're
they
not,
propose,
you
I
know,
think, is fantastic.
This doesn't seem to be under pressure There seems to be things in here that are gonna take some of that pressure off. We have, we'll have a large buffer. And obviously, between any industry, we've inherited the project, you've inherited the site.
Yeah.
Being that close to residential.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big issue for us. So yeah, if we can define it a little bit more, and, I'm sure there's probably information in this packet, that I'll be able to read tonight, even to show, to kind of assuage some of our fears there, but, yeah, it would've been nice to be able to review that a little bit earlier.
Sure.
I think there's some things that we can do, though. If there's other questions that you guys have, I mean, we do have the option to conditionally approve if you think that these definitions.
Tonight, I was gonna ask that
Yeah,
question.
we could
Yeah, we could
conditionally
conditionally
approve tonight based on conditions that you wanna apply.
Right.
We just have to figure out what those conditions are, and, I mean, again, if not enough on council feel comfortable, it seems the applicant is amenable to tabling, so.
I don't want to approve conditions that are no-go based on a lack of information. I mean, if someone here that understands it and can say, these are the conditions you need to watch, I'm all ears, but if we say, okay, no solvents and nothing under pressure, well, I don't know if they're powder processed, and what define pressure, right?
Not
So-
to exceed, right.
No, so, I mean, we're not the experts in that.
No.
I think
Well-
with a little bit of tweaking, we can smooth this thing out.
And then I would, to back up what you're saying, I would also say on the other side, you say no solvents and nothing under pressure. You could have a great project that's not, that meets every environmental guideline that you want. All of a sudden you look at your zoning text and you're like,
What's a solvent?
what do we do?
That's the other side of it too. We want to be inviting with the.
Yeah.
So what if we
don't want to
did
be too open.
condition of
I can't, yeah, I can't tell you how many
definition
things
of
have solvents.
powder coating?
I have another question. It's,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Define paint
F1.
coating.
Does F1 with the 15 acres and the limited space out there where we're proposing this for, if we were fundamentally okay with their doing, I don't think there's enough room for anything else to come in because there's not 15 more acres? Or
Great question.
does that help?
That's a limiting factor, right? There's only so many 15
There's only
acres.
so many,
So we've explored that, in that zoning area, light manufacturing that we're proposing, there is a substantial amount of greenfield site, about 200 acres.
Okay.
It's off to the east. So as much as I want to tell you, yeah, it'd be specific to this site, it's already built out, I want to be truthful in my answer to you, and that is.
There is more land that can-
200 acres of land.
Okay.
And if somebody took a 15-acre parcel, it could be totally utilized as that. So that's,
And is that, in the comprehensive plan though, is that still light manufacturing or is it residential in our comp plan?
so 50/50. 50% of that is still, I wish the computer was working, but it's not. 50% of that is light manufacturing in the comprehensive plan, and then the other 50% is not. I will tell you that zoning right now is what you have to go by, so it's a great question. Right now, the property owners have a zoning by right, and so if our comprehensive plan says that, necessarily can't pull it back unless the property owner is agreeable to that. So right now, it's a permitted,
Let me throw another curveball.
all right?
If that were to get developed into light manufacturing as it is currently zoned, could we not designate that as a new planned district, like PD district with different?
Great question. So because it already has a zoning distinction to it, it would be under that entitlements as far as.
Because it's already in city limit.
It's already within the city limits, and it already has a zoning distinction attached to it. Now, if an applicant wanted to change it, they could, but it has to be upon the applicant to request that it be changed to something else. And I wouldn't advise it be changed to PD because the amount of uses that are there are obviously much broader. So these are great questions. My homework for tonight is going to go back to Trevor. He's the zoning expert on this, and also probably Thad with our legal zoning piece on this, and find out how much ability we have to more specifically define this. And one question that I'm going to really be candid with the company is, if there's no solvents allowed at all, I'm sure there's some type of solvent involved with even the minimalist of production.
I want to give one of my comments as construed.
it could be very challenging to try to draft a specific thing, but we're gonna try, and we're gonna do our best, and we're gonna come back with hopefully some recommendations that everybody's happy with. But I don't want to give you a false sense of leaving tonight saying, staff's gonna come back with all these conditions, and it's gonna work, and it's gonna be okay with the company. I still think there's some challenges ahead that, first, the company's gonna have to be okay with it, because I'll be the devil's advocate. I think the company's gonna do what they say, but what they're probably concerned about is a different council comes along and they say, well, we wanna add X production. And
I
that,
feel like we're not sending a great message right now.
well, and that council says, well, that may have been the intent of the previous council, and you have to get approval from us, and we're not gonna approve it. So, from a property owner perspective and a business perspective, it becomes harder to make a large investment into that area, knowing that in order for you to increase your production in some capacity, you're not guaranteed that right. You have to go before the council, and that council may be an unreasonable council, or it could be a very reasonable council. But when you're talking about millions and millions of dollars in investments, that's something that they're gonna have to weigh and be comfortable with. Now, they may. I just wanna put all these things in front of you. And if I'm misspeaking, or
Yeah, I mean, you know, I still like the idea of stating something in the positive about what this industry is. It gets more challenge, I think, for the company when you start saying, and your future development, when you start saying, you know, it can't be flammable, it can't be this, it can't be that, because again, you can put conditions, you know, through your zoning efforts on that, but we're really concerned, you know, we have some time, but we don't have endless time. So, I mean, if you table, which is fine, I don't think we have an objection to that. I just want to make sure it doesn't have to go back through planning, and we'll be back here. I don't know if you meet every 2 weeks, but we'll be back here in 2 weeks to have an ordinance that we think we can get done.
it would be 3 weeks, just for everyone's information. May 6th,
Seventh.
7th is the next council meeting. Thank you. We could certainly try to cobble some things together.
And if it goes if it goes back to zoning, does it have to go through 2 more hearings?
Wouldn't have to go back through zoning. In our ordinances, council has the right to adopt with modifications, or deny. So they can adopt with modifications. So it stays in this realm unless council so choose to kick it back, but it sounds like they're wanting to keep it here.
Yeah, we'd have concerns about that, so.
Okay, does council have any more questions?
So my assumption is the applicant is, and I'll have you formally do it, are you all requesting that this be tabled?
Do we have to vote on that if they request it?
You would, I believe.
Be motion to table.
You would need a motion, but
Motion to table at the applicant's request.
there you go. But I don't want to speak for the
I mean,
applicant.
it sounds like that's the consensus of the council at this point, so I think we'd make that motion, be tabled.
Well, I have one more question. What if we pass this with the condition of the definition of paint and powder coatings, which you said could define then and answer a lot of the questions? Is anyone comfortable with that?
Doesn't, that's assumed, paint and powder coating definition is assumed. I feel like I'm a sticky spot, but to do it with condition of paint and powder coating be defined is nothing. It changes absolutely nothing. from what-
I just asked because when he said that, you agreed with that, so I wondered if that was
I'd like to see
something that you were.
what was all in there, and what the risks are associated with it. I understand from property
Yeah.
owner's perspective, they're concerned about any limitation and controls that they can do with the property in the future. But as a council, as a steward of the community, one of the things we have to look out to is what can be done with the property in the future.
Sure, I understand that, and
And it doesn't apply to this company, it applies to the legislature.
And we'll work on a definition of what that is, if that's what council wants, but I'm not sure it's still gonna make you happy, but, you know, hopefully we'll still be friends. I get it.
Animosity.
No, I'm just teasing you. Good questions.
I'd be comfortable with it to answer your question, Tiffany.
Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance 03-2025 with the condition of a definition of paint and powder coatings from Montrose Group or the applicant.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Do we have public comment or no?
We do have to open up the public comment. Correct, Teresa?
We had the public hearing last time, but you can open it up again if you'd like.
Good.
Evening, my name is Todd McConnell. I've been here before. I just had a few questions about the way that it read, and I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but one of the items that were on there was 15 acres. And I know that I asked this question about property before, but is that 15 acres specific to that one location? Or does it apply to any light manufacturing that's in that area or in the light manufacturing district?
I'll jump in, Mr. Mayor. It makes it permitted in any area in the city that's zoned light manufacturing. And if I had a screen, I would be able to pull up a really cool map. So what I will promise you, I'll get you a map and send it over to you. I believe Teresa has your email. But just for generalities, the light manufacturing district in Johnstown, 90% of it is out in we'll call the older industrial park that's in existence on the east side of the city. There is one small little area still associated out behind Granville Milling is the only remaining piece out there. Everything out there has been rezoned to a PD district. So everything is going to be on that east side in a group.
So the acreage that's listed there, is it specific to this one manufacturer, or would that be applied to any other business that's in the light manufacturing district? 'Cause I'm guessing that they are not all 15 acres or more, if I remember correctly that it says that.
Correct. So what this would be is the heading would be paint and powder coating manufacturing, and then underneath of that would be an additional restriction only relative to paint and powder coater manufacturing. So if it was another use that's defined, it would not apply to,
The 15 acre rule would not apply to.
sheet metal manufacturing, because it's
Okay.
not underneath of that context.
So that's why I wanted to make sure of the way that it was worded, the way that I read it.
It's only
That's
restricted
where
to
it said it
paint
looked
powder
only for that section, but I just want to make sure, like, if somebody else came in and said, or if somebody's already existing and you change that to be 15 acres, it's like, oh, I don't have 15 acres, I got to get more or I'm out of here.
Right.
That would apply to that. Does 115902 apply to all the businesses that are listed there? Because there were just a few specific items that were listed there. So I know like Atrium that does screen printing is not part of this, or that 115902, so are they included? Or is that
Those were
grandfathered?
conditioned, Ryan or Sean?
No, it's we'll call it legally non-conforming. So as you mentioned, the legally non-conforming is the technical way to say grandfathered. So some of these existing businesses that have been there prior to changes or modifications or just the existence of zoning happened prior to this code being implemented. So for instance, Tech International, they are not listed in here either. So whenever they did an expansion, that had to go back before a board, and approval had to be given for that non-conforming use to expand. So good question, but yes, some of those other industries that are back in that district are not identified in here. Some of them are, and some of them are under a conditional use. There's another subcategory that's not included in here, and I think medical marijuana is under that conditional use piece.
Okay.
So, yep.
And that was another business I was going to ask about as well. I think it's the next piece of legislation that's on there, but it still has to do with the 115902. There's something that was listed in there of 113706 that said that there will be 31 trucks currently in 2025 to 597 trucks in 2030. Not going to hold to that number. That's what it shows, that's what it stated in there. The minutes from 4/1 said that there will be 2.2 trucks per day. It got approved earlier, the minutes that got approved earlier, Sean's made that statement on 4/1. But the 113706 doesn't state if it's 31 trucks in 2025 per day, per year, per month. It just says 31 trucks. It go up to 597 trucks by 2030.
It says the expected delivery traffic from the facility expected to range from approximately 31 trucks in 2025 up to 597 trucks in 2030.
He's saying, is that monthly, daily, weekly,
I'm-
yearly,
I'm reading it as
Right.
31 trucks in 2025, so meaning
as
all
in the year?
in the year. And 597 in 2030, which would be 2 a day.
Okay. And I think also part of 115902, it said either gas or electric was the permitted, that they could,
For pottery and figurines.
but it doesn't say if it's natural gas or if it's liquid gasoline or what type of gas. I didn't know if that made any difference.
Just the vagueness of the list.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Which is kind of my driving point, is just trying to get away from those.
yeah,
I mean, it'd be any.
Correct.
I guess.
This all kind of happened in an interesting time. I mean, clearly we have an antiquated light manufacturing district. Talks about
Well, I think the
pottery and
gas and electric.
a lot of other things. I mean, we
applies
have an
only to
antiquated
pottery.
district over there that needs revised, to meet current standards, to meet current uses, and to be more business friendly. This just all kind of happened, perfect storm scenario. It should be part of a larger conversation that should happen in zoning to kind of bring us into the here and now. But it just kind of happened this way. So this, I mean, in my mind, this isn't the ideal way to do this. You're trying to take a non-conforming use and make it a conforming use, but it will bring a, it will bring a much-needed workforce into the city.
oh, I applaud that. I'm all for that, bringing businesses in,
It seems to me
absolutely.
This will possibly carry forward, so hopefully we can amend things after the fact to be more friendly for everyone.
And then the last question I have is more directed to the two of you. With the conversation about materials, material data safety sheet, I think is what it is, that you were speaking about earlier. Fire department has to be aware of anything that's there so they can deal with those things. Are they also getting a copy of that data sheet so they'll know that? Will there be additional training that they would need to deal with those items that would be on site or potentially on site? So I just wanted to know if that was going to be offered. Is that township cost? I don't know if that's city cost or if that's township cost, or if it would be something that,
It's the township, so any township cost is the city cost.
okay, thank you. Or if that would be something that the manufacturer would,
Let me clarify that. Is folks that live in the city, live in the township, the city doesn't pay directly for any costs associated with fire training.
You're asking if the training would be paid for by the or the applicant?
or if it
basically,
would,
there
or
would
if it would be paid by the city, the township, who, if there was additional training that would be needed due to any additional chemicals or exposures, how would that training be paid for and where would that come from? So that's the question I have for that.
I can jump in if you want, Mr. Mayor. So the information that came through today from Ryan, as a group, was passed along to the fire chief as well. So what you all saw, the fire chief has seen. I'm not an expert on how these things work from a manufacturing, but talking with Deb, it sounds like any type of manufacturing that has these chemicals has to go through a process of submitting this information to the fire department. From what she communicated to me, it's usually step 2, but we're ahead of that, and that's okay, because we wanted to do some research on our end. So we went ahead and submitted that to the fire department for their input, so that they can give us some background, whether anything that's being introduced would need additional training, or if it's outside the capabilities of our current fire department to treat. So they're reviewing that. We hope to get some feedback from them as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other citizens like to speak? Okay. There was a motion on the table.
There was a motion on the table by Tiffany and a second by Jeff to approve. I just want to make sure I had the condition right.
And I just want to add a
Okay.
comment from a staff perspective before you vote, if it's appropriate, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to go through the legal piece in this in my mind, so forgive me if I'm not completely accurate, but I would hate for you to do something that prevented you from acting at a later date with maneuverability. And what I mean by that is, let's say you hypothetically pass something tonight, it has been approved. If they wanted to modify that, it would then have to go back through the entire process again. So if we shoot tonight and we don't quite hit the mark, and it's too far outside the range of comfortability with this particular company, then in order to reset that, it would have to go through a 2-month process, which what I'm hearing from the company may not work into their time schedule. However, if you tabled it, it would allow you some flexibility to have a conversation with the company to see if the defining piece that you wanted to add fit into their wheelhouse. This is more of a procedural thing. What I'm concerned is if you vote, and then next week, you get more information and you want to change it, doesn't work like that from a legislative factor. I think it's going to have to go all the way back because you voted tonight and you took action and it was approved. So I want to put that out there. Tiffany, I think it's a great thought, and I appreciate you wanting to move this along, but I don't want it to have the counter effect of what you're trying to achieve here, and that is where next week you want to modify this and your hands are tied, and the company then has to go through the 2-month process again. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
So if it's tabled, the first reading would be,
It doesn't have to be, it
Doesn't have to.
it doesn't get
Doesn't have to be.
readings.
You can pick it right back up on
Come
May
right back.
7th and approve it.
Correct.
does that work, Tiff? Knowing that 60-day period may be a hindrance, or may delay what they want to do as far as their timeline to close.
Is the company comfortable with it, how it's written, right, currently in this?
Yeah, I think the company is comfortable with how it's written.
So the only addition is the condition of defining paint and powder coating.
I mean, that, again, I'm
I know you're,
hour and a half into this, so I'm just trying to kind of respond. It's good feedback, from the group. I was just trying to kind of come up with a solution that isn't starting to list 87 different chemicals
Right.
and different stuff that some you like, some you don't. We're never going to figure that out. I was just trying to think, is there some way, because if you look at the rest of the permitted uses, they at least have a sentence on what pottery is,
Fines,
right?
yes, yeah.
So if we just, and again, in my mind, it's not elaborate, right? This is
Right.
something that political science majors can understand, right? I thought that at least is a way that gives you some protection to say, this is what we mean by this industry. And I don't know, I've not talked to the company about it. I'm sure Deb has not either, because, we're trying to kind of figure this out. I was just trying to find a compromise.
yeah, absolutely.
I think when we looked at what the zoning code was, we pulled NEGS codes and put it as a classification as a NEGS code.
Yeah.
Kind of followed what the others were. So the company was comfortable with that.
And you guys are comfortable with tabling it to get this defined?
So they are in due diligence period right now in the building. They have the option of walking away from the building without anything before the end of the month. So we would need to have some guidance, yes or no.
By which date?
I believe it's the 26th of May.
Of May.
Yeah. May not.
And the next council meeting is
Next two council meetings are before.
May 7th, I think.
Even if we table, we can still do it in the first or second meeting, worst case scenario.
I think the 21st is probably getting a little bit too close for them, but,
Agreed.
and then that makes the decision on whether they,
That would be a shame.
go forward with the purchase or
That would be a shame.
walk away.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Tiffany,
We have to
There's the motion and a
rescind your
second.
motion.
I do not rescind my motion. I mean, can vote.
So the motion on the table is to approve with a condition that a definition for paint and powder coating is provided by the applicant, or who's going to provide it?
Yeah, I got a question too, so go ahead. No.
Does that mean we have to, when a condition is,
My,
we have to go back through this?
that was gonna be my next question to Teresa. Let's say they vote it, I'm going through all scenarios. Let's say they vote it down, because they're wanting to table it. If it gets voted down with the conditions put on there that Ms. Hollis put, would it still be able to be motioned then to be tabled?
If the motion to approve with the condition fails, would assume that would be a new motion. But legally, I would want to seek legal counsel.
Because it's a different, it would be a
It's
different
different
motion. It's different than what's being presented.
In the ordinance. It's
Right.
different. I know.
Y'all are making us think tonight. I
Oh,
appreciate
yes.
that.
He's not back from Pennsylvania.
Curveballs.
Failed, can't you bring, wouldn't it just be brought back at the next meeting?
The,
With,
the losing party can
If
bring it
fails,
back,
you can.
or the winning
you
party can
make
bring it
the
back.
motion
Could do the motion to reconsider.
Yes.
To reconsider.
I hate getting in that territory.
Okay.
Only if it's on
On the prevailing
someone
side.
on the prevailing side.
Yes. Okay.
But we can't rescind the original motion and motion to table.
You could, but I don't want to.
But you don't want to.
I would like to put it to a vote.
Okay. Teresa?
So I'm not clear on the condition. I want to make sure I'm clear on this. To approve with the condition that a definition for paint and powder coatings is provided. Who's going to, provided by who?
Between the city manager and the applicant to come up with that definition.
Okay.
And it's not Webster, so I already looked.
ChatGPT that.
Or other interesting, or MKSK, whoever you
Or,
can.
or Teresa, you can.
I'm not a
just-
parliamentarian, but can the second rescind their second and then it dies for lack of a second?
Yeah.
I'm not a registered parliamentarian, but.
You are a political science major? Let's go.
Yeah, well.
Motion without the condition?
Been a while.
The condition, unless you structure it very tightly,
Does
really
the
is,
whole thing go down?
it's a word soup. It doesn't really hold any definition other than what they put in there. So if you wanna pass this as is, unless you have concerns about what the definitions are, rescind your motion.
No, I just think that that's what, when we originally discussed it, everyone was comfortable with it, with the definition as like pottery has a definition, novelties has a definition, paint and powder coating, if we define it, because there is no definition right now, it just says paint and powder coating manufacturing. So if we include in the definition of what that is exactly,
Can we, can the condition of that definition be, also have the condition of being approved by council?
I think
I'm just trying to figure a way out of
it.
it.
You're putting burdens on the applicant that they're
I-
gonna, it's gonna be counterproductive.
I understand.
I assume a request to pass, the legislation, it would be counterproductive with that. If we had input on what those definitions were, that shifts the power completely to whatever we come up with. If there is no direction on what those definitions included or don't include, it gets pretty it's pretty legal what is a definition. We define what we plan on doing, we define anything we could potentially do. I think it's too broad on its face, and it's too narrow if we say we have to approve it.
I'm just trying to find a common ground between economic development and caution.
And that's where I'm living.
defining paint and powder coating, if it is the city manager, the applicant, or representation of the applicant, and legal counsel, is that comfortable enough for everyone?
You're confident in that group being the ones to define that? Okay.
I mean, and then as long as legal, like that, if they look at it and say, yeah, that stands, then
It's
I
all-
would be, I mean,
I'm on board with that motion as long as you're on board with the people that are making that decision.
yeah, I mean, I have trust in Sean and our legal counsel for us, and then they're gonna say, you know, for them to come to a determination of what everybody's comfortable with to make sure that we get this done. That's, sorry, go ahead.
I just know, I'm sorry, because I just want to comment. I personally would feel more comfortable with tabling that motion and letting us put the definition of this process in a new version of the text, and bring that to your next meeting, and you vote on it. Because I'm really worried about how we, usually a condition, there's all sorts of conditions that apply, but it's normally like, well, you know, it says you need to have berming. Okay, well, we're going to condition that you have berming, but you're going to work out with the city manager that it's going to be 14 trees. I mean, it gets that specific. We've even had people say, no, they got to be pine trees, right? This is a little bigger, to me, in my mind, a little bit bigger than that, because we might have a definition, and is it Thad Boggs at Frost, and he's very good. We've worked with him a lot, and Thad is great, but I'd almost feel better, let's get a definition, and then let's put it in your text so you have it forever. So it doesn't just apply to this deal, but it applies to all of them. I'm a little worried that there's just some vagueness about how we would meet that condition. I really appreciate, your support for economic development and for the company, and for doing this, but I feel like we can get this definition, we can bring it back. And again, you guys can obviously have the discussion, but I think that would be a cleaner process from at least my perspective. But again, you guys are elected, I'm not. But that at least I think would be process that to me has fewer questions, because I just don't know what that really means. Does that mean that all three of us would have to be happy? Does that mean, I don't, I've never seen it before. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just seems like it gives me a little bit of pause from a process standpoint.
Well, then in that case, I do rescind my motion.
Okay, thank you.
Unbelievable.
Okay, motion's been rescinded. Any other motions on the floor?
Do I have to rescind mine?
No.
Okay. I think we can get it done though, Tiff.
Huh.
I think we can get it done.
I think we can get it done. Again, it's just a balance between economic development and caution. And if they're comfortable with it, which is what they said, I mean,
So
allows
make
us
sure
better.
we're sending a good message to them that we want to get it done with them, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the way you're taking it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the company is very supportive. They're willing to do virtual meetings to explain anything or be here in person with notice, because they have to fly overseas. But
I think we've sent a strong signal.
very much appreciative of the support.
So
What is the will of council?
Make a motion to table.
Second.
Dave Seelan,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis,
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Bob Orsini.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
We also have ordinance 04-2025, and ordinance amending ordinance 31-2024, the annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Johnstown to approve necessary changes of appropriations. This is the second reading of this one, correct, Teresa? This is for the water, wastewater improvement plant? Sewer plant? Okay. And water. Sean, would you like to state what this is exactly for?
I'm going to kick it over to Dave, actually.
Okay.
Appropriating funds that we, as far as OWDA,
Thank you for coming.
turn around and pay for the engineering and things like that.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dave on this? Okay. I make a motion that we pass ordinance 04-2025. Hold on. Does the public have any questions or comments on this? Okay. I make a motion that we pass ordinance 04-2025 as written.
Second.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Wes Coble,
Yes.
Jeff Barr,
Affirm.
Bob Orsini, Dave Seelan,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Okay, moving to resolutions, 2025-18, a resolution authorizing the city manager enter into an agreement to participate in the Ohio Department of Transportation road salt contracts awarded in 2025. This is an annual appropriation or annual resolution that we have to do to allow Sean and Jack to be able to get us road salt for the next year. They started this year, this early in the year. Is there anything I'm missing on this one, Dave? Okay. Does council have any questions or comments on this item? Does the public have any questions or comments? Okay. What's the will of council on resolution 2025-18?
I'll make a motion.
Ryan got it first.
Okay.
I'll take one.
I heard it in
Right,
stereo.
You got it.
Ryan and Second, Dave.
No,
I've taken one in a while.
Tom, okay. Brian Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Coble.
Yes.
Jeff Barr. Bob Orsini. Dave Seeland.
Yes. Okay, we have no introduction of legislation. Other business, we were going to talk about the road project that was brought to finance tonight. So as part of this road project discussion, finance was able to view future projects and how we would have future money for next year's projects and then lining up years after that. So the thought was to do Liberty Street, McCracken Drive in 2025.
Based on Jack's recommendation?
Yes.
Well, so Jack came in with just a general list of what everything would cost in that part of town.
Okay.
So we looked at McCracken, Pershing, Liberty, Recreation Drive was on that list. Drury, and everything over there, pretty much. We came back, and I think when it left us, it was those two plus Pershing.
Yes.
So I understand, so you're wanting to move Pershing to be in line with
The Leafy,
37.
and with the Leafy Dell 37,
Because they're gonna tear up some of those improvements potentially when they come through and do.
So can we add some extra roads in for this year? Because I know we had a
Well,
roughly
that-
330,000 in the
well,
budget.
that was the thing. We looked at future years.
You have,
Yep, you want me to, sorry for the
This-
interruption, I wanted to make sure I connected with them so I can get all the information. Ryan and Tiffany, if you want to share.
Yeah.
We're not here. Dave, I'm sorry.
So
I'm gonna give
with
you
doing the projects that we have listed, Ryan, it leaves us with 322,000 at the end of this year. And then next year, we have 455,000 more in projects. So we need to carry over enough for the future projects with 37 and Leafy Dell.
If you want, I can give you the real quick presentation. that I
Yes,
gave
go ahead.
So,
I just want to know how we walked into another committee and deleted a street is my question.
We're not, it's just being moved.
good question. So, what we, I think, originally looked at was Liberty, McCracken, and Pershing, and then one of the micro ceilings that we talked about at safety and service.
Right.
And God, I wish I had that, because this is, sorry to the public for doing it this way, but this is the only way I can at this point. When I connected with the engineers, as you're aware, in 2026, the intersection of Leafy Dell is gonna be done.
Right.
So on the west side, where Pershing is located, there's gonna be curbs as well as sidewalk improvements being done on that side.
Okay.
The concern that the engineers and I shared together was, if we go ahead and do mill and fill on Pershing, are we then going to rip up some of what we've done? Or are we going to stop it and then have 5 or 6 seams where the mill and fill came in, and then we're connecting all these other pieces? So what we opted for was hold off on Pershing for this year,
Okay.
put it into next year's schedule. What we did then, Ryan, is you are correct, we had one micro sealing, and instead of picking up another road, because as you're aware,
So
these
you're
are.
just doing 2 micro ceilings now?
You got it. These
Okay.
are kind of broken up into segments, and if we go all the way down to Drury, my God, we've got to do Fairview. So what we did is we picked up another micro sealing project for this year, so both of
Okay.
these would get done. Still the crack sealing. We did 2 projects here, and then what I want to walk through here is, this is where the mayor was talking about total on the balance, and then 129 for the tech piece. 200,000 of that is getting transferred from the Port Authority land to the Budget Stabilization Fund. So, and then 7,000 is for a server for the police and the city, and mill and fill, micro seal, it equates to that number right there. And so at the end of the year, you have a carryover of 322, which we like to have a carryover in case we have or we're building actually a balance so that we can start to take on some bigger projects other than just a $50,000 mill and fill. So what we would like to do is continue to add to that. So if you look at 2026, we get into starting off with a balance of taking this number here, taking the anticipated revenues, starts you off here. 80,000 is our additional commitment to the Leafy Dell intersection. We've already started to bank some of that over the last couple of years. That'll be our last commitment, and you're gonna like this, and this is why I'm excited to tell you. What we're also looking at is Leafy Dell Road all the way to Parkdale. I
Okay,
wish we
because
had
that was
an
my
audience.
next question. If I'm
Yeah.
gonna wait on this, I want it all the way up to the school.
I think we'll be able to get it all the way up to the school, and it'll be we've got to get a confirmation on this number. This is a guesstimate. Jack and EMH&T will work through that. So what you'll see in 2026, if you all approve it, is Leafy Dell Road, as well as Pershing, Mill and Fill, as well as that intersection, all getting torn up at one time. The only thing that I will add to this that gives me slight pause and concern is the apartment complex construction that's gonna happen there. I believe it's taking place this year. The heavy equipment and truck that's gonna happen there, I'd rather that happen now instead of after we get everything done. But we're gonna play that by ear and continue to reach out to the,
Does our zoning have a curve, project initiation and project completion?
Well, that was a question I was gonna ask tonight too,
Sure.
in other businesses about that project, but
Okay.
we'll get through this first.
Yep, so,
Okay, so this, because that was my main thing, we have not paved roads in the city for a while, so I wanted to do as many as we could,
yeah.
you know, this year, you know, within the budget.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoehorn in,
Tight budget.
And with Pershing taking a lot of school traffic, because they come through there, that's obviously important.
Right,
Other
you're
than,
you're seeing people take Prussian because they can't make that left. It's easier to shoot across than it is to necessarily wait across, so.
that or like I do, I go down Pershing and I take that to Edwards and out of town.
If you're
And,
going out, yeah.
yeah, cause I'm going out to 161, so I just disregard the whole
That
downtown.
intersection redo, is that's gonna include a
Traffic signal.
Traffic light,
signal, right? So
yeah.
that'll help
Yep.
get exit in and
Which
out
is
of there.
why we're putting crosswalks on all corners. I think what the state originally put in was crosswalk that already exists and then one, and we said, we can do better. We may have to participate in a little bit more of that project, but it's gonna be a more complete project, and I think it's gonna be safer. Now, we may not be able to connect the sidewalks all the way, but we're at least gonna have the infrastructure there so that we can someday maybe bring it all the way down 37, so.
Recreation drive is more than
Good question, that was brought up, that's because of the sidewalk. He just asked the same question you did, Mr. Mayor, somebody had a question, I'm
Did you
sorry.
say there would be sidewalk
Yeah.
on Pershing somewhere? Or
So they're gonna have the ramps put in place, and then we can determine, after we get that project done, if we wanna continue, you know, a sidewalk to connect that ramp down 37, towards the funeral home, or at some point, we wanna put a sidewalk on Pershing. That's probably a further conversation, and the sidewalks, and then obviously it creates, more expenditures. Ryan just brought up the same question you did, Mr. Mayor, and that was, how the heck is Recreation Drive cost more than some of these other ones? That is because Recreation Drive has a current sidewalk in place. If you've traversed out there, that sidewalk is pretty hit, so that would include the street as well as the sidewalk improvement there as well. That's why it bumps up, Recreation Drive, as compared to Fairview, which is probably the same distance.
Yeah.
Okay?
If we could get sidewalk down to the nursing home, not on that street, obviously, but coming off of Pershing, going that way, sidewalk down to the nursing home would be nice. That's not a long stretch. And they have sidewalk out, they have some sort of walking area out front of that, and then some in front of those houses to get you down to Edwards, so.
Yeah, we wanna get the kids on the other side of the street where the safety measures are, instead of walking sidewalk and trying to make it cross somewhere.
All right.
There and 60 kids.
So is council good with the proposal then?
Yeah.
And you don't have to act on it, it's already appropriated. This was more of a, hey, ask questions. This is what staff's moving towards unless you all have a huge
No, I think
concern or
it's,
issue.
I think it's thought out and it's. Okay,
Great questions, by the way.
get going. Other business, Ryan, you said you had something else?
Yeah, so with the apartments in Leafy Dell, question that I had, now I know when they came in, they just fell under standard zoning for multifamily. They didn't have to come in front of zoning, they didn't have to, we didn't have design review at that point to come in front of, but these projects have been on the books for a while, so at what point do their permits lapse? And do they have to come back under the city to apply for things?
So let me, I don't want to give you information tonight that's not accurate, so what I will do is, let me do a little dive into that, and then certainly bring it back around and see where we're at with that. I can tell you, they have started some of the project, which I know usually is a qualifier, you have to start, you know, so many years, and then what was the code in place when they got approved versus what it is now? That's obviously always a hanging piece there. And then I believe the last communication I had from them was they are looking to finally get into the architectural piece. I think we'll be able to push that into the design review. So I think, I've indicated that that is the request of the
Yeah,
city. And
Everybody wants to see that happen.
yes, so I've indicated that that is the appropriate approach, and that's the the platform that I'm on right now until they knock me off of it and say, I don't have any ability to do that, but I believe the last communication I had from them was that was the process that they were gonna start down.
Yeah.
So,
So I know if they've filed, if they haven't done anything architecturally yet with the county, I don't think they have, maybe they have, I don't know. Obviously, though, they've done plumbing, they've done electrical, things like that, so there is a permit on file with the county probably somewhere. Those are usually good for a year, we've been longer than a year, so that's my question, what's lapsed since then? So, and if that gives us more teeth to bring them back to the negotiation table, then great, because I think that's what people wanna see.
yeah, I've been pushing for them to submit something for our architectural review board to evaluate. Like I said, that's the platform I'm on right now until I get knocked off of it, but it seems like there's an agreeableness from their end to participate in that process, so.
Is that where you're going, Bob?
I just wanna see the progress, right? And usually without consequence, there's no change, that's all. And I don't know if we have arrows in our quiver, if we wanna use them or whatever, it seems to be a long initial, process to see anything happen. I certainly don't want, there's that trusses, cranes, and heavy machinery driving up and down new roads we just paved, Is it, will it destroy them? Probably not, but do we wanna do that? If we can avoid it, probably not, right?
I know when you apply for most permits, the first question they ask is what have you talked to the city? And where is the city on this? So if you have a project that lapses, that's gonna be a question that comes up, so.
We can make it work, we just need a little
Yeah.
more communication and, activity.
So my next question that I had was the contract with the school. Do we have a signed contract yet? Do we have a closing date?
Still going through the due diligence process. I'm not sure if I had that in the report or not, but I believe I did. Okay. Still going through the due diligence process. As you can see, or maybe you haven't, if you go out to a parking space that has some orange paint on it, they're doing some surveys and things like that. So we're still moving forward. Haven't gotten any indication from them or the title companies or anything like that we're out of bounds or that there's a problem or an issue. So, still going through that. So have I signed the sale of the property that you all authorized me to do? No. That has not happened because we're still doing the whole search and due diligence of a purchase and a sale, so.
And me coming from a real estate background, obviously, that's why I'm poking into it. I see, when I go into a real estate contract, especially if it's a cash deal, that's 2-week close, there's no due diligence, it's as is. You have a strict closing date, here's where we're closing, title agent, closing costs, all the above, all done there at signature.
Yeah, but we're not vacating the premises, I think that has a big.
I get it, I just, I like to see things with an end date and a signature. And I noticed, not that I'm against it, I just noticed they're having meetings in the building now. Technology was changed, things like that, so I just wanted to see what the status of the contract was. I don't know, that was news to me when I came in today, that things were changing, there were meetings happening in here, so I'm not sure what's on the horizon, but I'd like to see a fully executed contract before we go too far.
I'm grateful they brought us better microphones. And,
Yeah, our
and we
AV
can,
equipment
you can
was
turn these
not-
on and off, so.
Yeah. But you know what I mean, though. There's changes in the building, there's meetings happening in the building, there's use of the building. So I'd like to see at least a contract fleshed out. Other than that, I think that was pretty much all I had.
Okay. Bob, you have anything? Jeff?
Unfortunately, not tonight.
Wes?
Sean, I should have probably asked this earlier, with your manager report. Number 11, with the 208 negotiations, you make a comment that there's a meeting in the near future to continue discussions. I'm just curious, how near is the near future? And then, what's that gonna look like? Like, well, you know, I'm sure there's been, you know, whispers and whatnot in the background, so I'm just curious what that'll
Sure.
look like in those discussions when they do.
Sure.
happen.
So, number 11, just so you're all aware, and I talked about this in prior meetings, reached out to Jim and actually just sent an email today, and got coalition buy-in. And so looking to schedule something with Jim, probably this week or next week, just to meet. It's been a while since we met, and I did bump into Jim at the, Jim Roberts, I should use the professional here, Jim Roberts with Licking Regional Water District, and bumped into him at a TID meeting, and we both kind of said, hey, and I said, yep, and I said, we probably need to get together, and he said, yep. So I committed to reaching out to him, and I told him I'll reach out and get you some dates, and we'll sit down and reconnect and see where it takes us. So that'll happen next week, or this week, at the end of this week. There's obviously some level of urgency. I think everybody wants to move things along as soon as possible, but I would anticipate that this is a reconnect. We haven't had a long discussion over the last, 2-3 months, so we'll probably engage and have another meeting after that. So we'll tiptoe back into the water, make sure it's nice and warm, and then continue to have the conversation. So I'm waiting to hear back from Jim to arrange that meeting, so.
Is that gonna be a meeting between our staff, or is that with the liaison group we sent over?
Right now, it's just formatted with Jim and myself.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
I do.
Yep.
I just have an update for the America 250. I wrote and applied for a grant back in January and was notified today that there were 125 applicants and 57 were awarded up to $5,000. We were awarded the full amount of $5,000, which gives us the opportunity to get more matching funds from other organizations. So kind of exciting. There will be a formal press release from America 250 for all of the grants that were awarded. So that was good news.
Well done. Excellent.
Great
Great.
job.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brian? Dave?
This Saturday, breakfast 8 to 10, American Legion,
What's on the menu?
everything.
Will Bruce be there?
What's
Easter
that?
egg.
Bruce will be there,
Bruce will be
raffle,
there.
50/50 raffle tickets will be available, Bob, come by a bunch. 8 to 10, after that, then also will be the Easter egg hunt, out in the grass, and so, usually one of their bigger events, so definitely come down. All the normal, eggs, hash browns, French toast, pancakes, bacon sausage, toast, coffee, cereal, everything. You got all that, Teresa?
Yeah.
All right, good. Fireworks. I cannot be more excited with the possibilities that we have cooking for the fireworks. I'm in very active but positive conversations with a good deal of sponsors or prospective sponsors in the area to directly sponsor some activities. So what we're talking about is direct payment to provide additional activities at little or no cost to our youth and our families. Food, obviously, is still going to be, you're going to still have to pay for your food. But last year, just for example, we had face painting ranged from $5 to $8, and just about ready to close the deal here that then the face painting this year would be free. So, and that's in conjunction with a good deal amount of other activities that are most likely going to fall to the positive, and we will have a lot of activities, takeaways for our youth and our families, that so they don't have to make a decision between getting face painting and or versus cotton candy or French fries or something like that. So incredible showmanship by the by some of these sponsors. So if there's anyone listening, if you still want to be involved, definitely reach out to me. I'd be happy to find a sponsorship activity for you, that group or business to sponsor, or if there is a group of volunteers that are willing to basically man one of the sponsored activities. Because we're talking about something as simple as designing your own shoe, taking templates of athletic shoes, giving kids a bunch of markers, some tables, and they can design their own shoe. That's an activity, coloring piece they can take home with them, something they can share a little bit of artistic abilities. We're in discussions with choir with the high school for who's going to sing the national anthem. So we're going to really drive community involvement here and try to give as much we can to the community based off our sponsors. And again, they've been really positively engaging on this. And like I said, just got to close the deal on what and where their money would be going to provide this for our citizens.
Okay. Sean? Anyone over there?
It seems we're on for scheduling the special council meeting for goals review for the Friday, the 25th. Sounded like everybody was,
Okay. At what, 3:30 was it, or 4?
if 3:30 works. I wanted to make sure it works for everyone.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion that we move to executive session to consider the employment or compensation of a public employee.
I had other business.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
OACP, Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police, voted that I be a mentor on their committee. And I'll know the full details of that at the end of the month when I attend their conference. Essentially, it's for new chiefs. If they have issues, they don't know what they're doing, they need some help, assistance, they can call their mentor. Whether I'll be a mentor or I'll be on the committee, like I said, I'll know the full details further at the end of the month. But
Congratulations.
I'd share that with the council.
Great job.
Good job.
Okay, anybody else over there? Okay, I make a motion that we move to executive session to consider the employment or compensation of a public employee to include all of council members, the city manager, and the chief of police, with no business to follow.
Second.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Wes Coble.
Yes.
Jeff Barr. Bob Orsini.
Yes.
Dave Seeland.
Yes.
Brian Green.
Yes.
Tiffany Hollis.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.